Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're in Isaiah. We're in chapters 13 through 17, and there are a lot of oracles going on in these chapters. And I think as we were reading through, this is just one more opportunity for God to show his sovereignty. I had some weird questions about the oracles and the coming doom for many of these countries that were rising up against Israel. But overall, I think there's this overarching theme of sovereignty of God, and God's going to do what God's going to do.
So let's flesh out like these oracles in these countries just real quickly.
Well, we have quite a few countries to say or to name, I suppose. We start off with, let's see,
Babylon.
Chapter 13 is all about Babylon, judgment of Babylon. Then we move into chapter 14, which is the restoration of Jacob, which would be dealing with the Lord having compassion on Jacob or Israel, as well as the sojourners that will join them in the house of Jacob. And then in that chapter as well, there's an oracle concerning Assyria. Chapter 15, there's an oracle concerning Moab. Chapter 16, there is, wait for it. Nope, that's just a continuation of Moab. And then 17 is the oracle concerning Damascus. And all of these things are like impending doom or judgment that the Lord is going to bring down on all of these different countries. But what is interesting to me, and some of the questions I was talking about earlier, is as I was reading this, I completely understand the judgment that is coming for each of these. But what got me is that we've talked about this before, like God allows things to happen to the Israelites, to Israel, to Judah, for his own glory and his own purposes because of the disobedience. So like he's allowing them to be like the hands and feet of his judgment, but then he has mercy on them. And then in turn, in my eyes, he judges those same countries by like annihilating them, because he's trying to show mercy then to Israel and Judah. And to me, that's just like, well, why is he punishing them for doing what he wants them to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, it sounds so childish, but like, I just don't quite get it. It seems like not fair.
We had a pretty rousing conversation about this morning. Jenny did the readings this morning and then talked about them with me after she did the readings and was like, wait a minute, this is confusing. How come God can judge a nation with a nation and then judge the nation that he judged that nation with?
Yeah, there you go.
And it is tricky. And I think there's a lot of nuance to all of it. And I don't want to, for the podcast, I would like to simplify it as much as possible, but I don't want to oversimplify it. Because sometimes like it's easier to understand things when we oversimplify it, but we've oversimplified it then and it's actually not real. And so what's interesting here is that we have been tracking primarily Israel. So to be fair, like we've been following the history of Israel. They come out of Egypt. They live under the judges. God raises up kings. They're not supposed to have kings, but they kind of are supposed to have kings. So they have kings. There's good kings. There's bad kings. They finally split. There's a northern kingdom in Israel. There's a southern kingdom in Judah. They're both not great. They kind of go up and down. And Assyria is going to sweep in and destroy the northern kingdom in 722. And Babylon is going to sweep in and destroy the southern kingdom in 568. And then there's going to be a restoration that occurs around 539 from Cyrus, who is a king of the Medes and the Persians. And so what you get in this short period of history, relatively short period of history, is just like kingdom after kingdom after kingdom after kingdom after nation after nation after nation, just like a lot of turnover and a lot of turmoil. And I think what's necessary here is to understand that God exists for God's glory. And so it's easy for us to get attached to Israel as we are primarily viewing the history of Israel. It's like, oh, those are the good guys, but they're not really. And even like what we've been reading, they're pretty much never the good guys. Like I think about, we read Micah not too long ago, and Micah is basically prophesying like, you people are a bunch of fakes. Like you're doing all this worship, but it's not real because your lives don't match up the worship at all. And so because I think, and there's some controversy around this, but I think God exists for God's glory. God is not primarily interested in you. He loves you. He's gracious towards you. He has mercy for you. He has compassion for you. He wants relationship with you. But ultimately, God exists for God's glory. And I think one of the best ways I can illustrate that is that when God is going to destroy Israel under Moses, Moses falls on his face and is like, God, like if you do this, like you will embarrass yourself. And God is like, oh, that's true. I don't want to do that. So it's kind of weird because we think of it in like human terms, and God's not a human. And so God is over all of us. You use the word sovereignty. God is sovereign over all things. Whatever God decrees is just because God is just. And so it makes sense that it bugs us when God is like, hey, I'm going to use Babylon to destroy Judah, and then I'm going to use the Medes and the Persians to destroy Babylon, and it will be right both times. Or I'm going to destroy Israel with Assyria, and then I'm going to destroy Assyria with the Medes and the Persians, and that will be right that time as well. Basically, like, nations don't really mean that much to God. What means a lot to God is serving God. And so really what we should be tracking here, and I know it's easy to get distracted and think we're tracking Israel, what we're really tracking is God's faithfulness to himself, because God is keeping his promises. There's no reason that Israel should be still a nation. There's no reason that God should relent from his wrath and allow Israel to taunt Babylon. That's chapter 14.
I really like chapter 14 when it comes to that Babylon part, that taunting of Babylon, because they're like, it's just another instance of God glorifying himself.
Yeah.
Because this king would have been very powerful, thought very highly of himself, but this is basically saying like, hey, when he dies, he's gonna greet all the other kings that died before him in the same way, and realize that, verse 11, your pomp has brought you down to Sheol, the sound of your harps, maggots are laid as a bed beneath you, and worms are your covers. Like, it doesn't matter, because God is God. God is the King of Kings. He is the one that has all the power and authority.
And one of the things biblically that Babylon is used for, Babylon is used as an example of extreme pride. And the Babylonians were known to be extremely prideful in the power of themselves. So here's the thing I want to point out. Babylon is going to be judged. Babylon is going to be gone. Assyria is going to be judged. Assyria is going to be gone. Moab is going to be judged. It's going to be gone. Israel and Judah, really, in the way that they exist, are going to be destroyed. They're going to be gone, really. When they come back, they're like a totally different people. The way they handle things looks different. They actually rediscover the faith that they're supposed to have, and that's important. So God exists for God's glory, and all these nations that get in the way, like, they don't really matter, especially when they don't honor the Lord. So the way that that's applicable for us today is, one, our primary allegiance is to God. Like, we want to serve God. We want to serve our communities and our nations as we serve God. And we want to help our communities and nations to serve God. Because God exists for God's glory, we want to exist for God's glory, because our priorities then are lined up with God's priorities. And so the reason that we don't want to get those things mixed up is because you start to do weird things when you value one over the other. So we always want to be a people who are called by the Lord's name and honor him and represent him in all situations and circumstances. And when you do that, a lot of times you don't fit super well in one box or the other, because you are in God's kingdom. You're part of, we're citizens of heaven. And so when we're citizens of heaven, we help be part of on earth as it is in heaven, what Jesus told us to pray for. So that's I guess I'm kind of jumping into your part right away. We want to be wholly obedient to the Lord, because nations change and fall, and communities change and fall. And the one thing that will never change and fall is God, right? Like, when's the last time you bumped into a Babylonian? You didn't, because they're gone. When's the last time you bumped into, an Assyrian from this empire? You didn't. They're gone. When's the last time you bumped into a Roman? You didn't. They're gone. Like, so many of these places rise and fall, but there are believers in every corner of the world, because God's kingdom never falls. And so I guess your part is continue to be obedient to the Lord, continue to serve him well, and then serve your community and your nation well, helping them to serve the Lord, because ultimately we exist to serve the Lord. So these are that's kind of the takeaway for today. Go check it out for yourself. Isaiah 13 to 17. It is worth a read, and it is worth thinking. Like, make sure you ask good questions, because that's actually how you grow in your faith and your understanding of the Lord, and we want to encourage that. So let us know what you think. We'll be back again tomorrow. See you then. Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.